simple thing like could be a way.
Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, etc. This is the weekly Coacharya webinar. We only have 4 more left after this one this year. So please join us. Today's webinar will be driven by Sushma, who all of these people on the Love Town today actually are our alumni community, but Sushma is in charge today. So listen to whatever she says. And she will talk to us about imposter syndrome and what it is and how as coaches we can help. And personally, I'm looking forward to hearing about that because I have been impostoring myself my entire life. Not so much lately, because lately I feel like through self-coaching, I've been able to get over a lot of my stuff, but my entire, I want to say career, life, because even in school, you know, it's, I feel like imposter syndrome has always been just sitting on my shoulder. So I'm very happy to hear today from our lovely panel and to learn. But before I vanish, a couple things. When you have questions, not if, I know you'll have questions, please put them in the chat. And if you are watching or listening to this later, put them in the comments because we do pay attention to those. And when you have the questions, we will get them to our speakers and hopefully get them answered for you. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we have a podcast. The podcast is from our webinars. So if you're already attending, you don't have to listen, but we'd appreciate it if you still subscribe and tell your friends. So every single week we do this webinar and we have at least one additional thing, which usually is like a 25-minute live session, also on a coaching subject. And by Friday each week, that makes it onto our podcast. And the podcast is called Coach to Lead. So if you look in your, Apple and Google and Spotify's and whatever you listen to for podcasts, if you search for Coacharya or you search for Coach to Lead, you will find it. So please subscribe. Reason I'm telling you about it today is because December is around the corner, and December marks Ram, the founder of Coacharya. It's his 10th anniversary of being a coach. I should say professional coach, a credentialed coach. So to celebrate, we're going to have a podcast every single day of December. And we're going to surface some of our staff, our community, our trainers, and Ram's favorite webinars from the past 4.5, 5 years. So please take a look, take a listen. Every single day, you will be hearing from us. Okay, I'm done for now. Sushma, please let us know who you are and tell us about imposter syndrome.
Thank you, Magda. It's wonderful to hear and feel your energy, even on a webinar. Hi, everyone. I'm Sushma Chakrala. I'll be talking about imposter syndrome. I am a director at JP Morgan Chase. I started coaching out of my own personal interest and also a way to work with others and give back to the community. And this is something I'm really enjoying now. My co-panelists are my course mates. We all had this big discussion around imposter syndrome, and it became a very interesting topic. So here we are. So let me go ahead. Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yep, your screen is great, and we can hear you as well.
Okay, great. So let me start with what it is. I think the first line is a definition on Google or sites, Harvard Business School. It's just the feeling of phoniness and unworthiness. It looks like there are 2 variations. One is where you don't think you're good enough. The second is you pretend to be something else in order to fit in. That's the phoniness aspect to it. So it really comes down this feeling of insecurity, inadequacy, in order to show a success, and this is chronic self-doubt, and a sense of intellectual fraudulence that overrides any feelings of success or external proof. So this is really the definition, and I think when we read, I read Michelle Obama's book. She also talks about imposter syndrome in her books. We've been talking about this in many forums, especially tech women forums, and it's just amazing that it's not just a few, but many of us resonated with this feeling at some point in time. So the study shows that 70% of people report to have these thoughts, and it is not just women. Earlier, my assumption was also it is largely seen in accomplished women, but many men and students also came forward and said that it could affect anyone. In fact, when I talked to some of my friends in Google and Amazon, some of these big companies, they said this kind of thought process could be evident even if you may be in your dream job. You may still have this lingering feeling of not being good enough. So I think it is irrespective of the role or the job or the work. It largely comes to this feeling of unworthiness. It's always nice to explain with a cartoon. I felt this was apt. It really shows there are two people, the manager and the employee. He's being called to the office. He or she assumes he's going to get fired. And the first thought is that I did all these mistakes. I'm sure she has realized this. And to his surprise, she actually says, "You've done a great job. I'm going to give you a raise." Instead of enjoying his success and feeling happy about it, the only thought that goes on in his mind is that, she's going to figure out another day. I'm sure most of us can, many of us have gone through this at some point, if not today, maybe in the past. So it is, how do you recognize imposter syndrome? So it is really this feeling that I'm not good enough, I'm fake, I'm pretending, right? I don't fit in, I don't deserve this. I just got lucky with this job, may not happen again. Somebody will soon figure this out, right? And so I think this 5 bullets really talk about those 5 feelings. If I have to go a little deeper into it, so I think it tends to happen when there is a lot of pressure, and you're going into a high-profile role or a job, or maybe a course, and you're always worried about, not sure how I got in, but I'll soon be found out, right? And even if success comes to you and you're not able to enjoy it because of this constant pressure. The second scenario is the feeling of being fake and soon being found out. Again, this I've read in books, many books, Michelle Obama's book specifically, she talks about this unreal, surreal feeling when she was in the White House, right? And you think you're pretending to be something, you're going to deceive everyone. So I think that's the second thought. Third one is, I'm sure many of us have again done this. We always hold this down to luck, right? I just got lucky this time, may not happen next time. And there's, right? And you think that you may, let's see if, you continue to see success. So this, I think the main thing is that in spite of evidence of success and evidence of accomplishments, still the person does not believe that he deserves it, he or she deserves it, and it's just coincidental. So those are the kind of symptoms that we should be looking for. If the person has shown history of right, maybe not as much success or multiple failures, maybe then the imposter syndrome is valid. But in many cases that we have looked at or studied, it has been with people who are very accomplished, doing very well, maybe 1 or 2 mistakes which anyone tends to make, right, and that itself leads to this feeling of self-doubt and this feeling of phoniness that that I should not enjoy this little bit of success because any moment this may come down. I'll pause here. I think this is the key slide. These are the main symptoms that we should watch out for. Has anyone else seen this or felt this in the past?
Yes. I think a lot of people who are in the chat are agreeing, and the lucky one seems to be resonating a lot. But I'll tell you, I felt literally every single one of these things multiple times.
Yeah, that's right, Magda. I did too, and I didn't know it was called imposter syndrome. Right? We gave it names like insecurity and lack of confidence before, but it's only recently we figured that it is imposter syndrome. If all your data and history shows you have done well and you're doing well and you're accomplished, but still this is this uneasy feeling that maybe you're not good enough. I agree. I think, Magda, I think we talked to a few students, people in very big companies in high positions. I think the ceiling is quite evident elsewhere. In fact, many of the men in the class also agreed, saying this is not specific to women. They have also seen this in maybe when you're joining a new job or you're meeting somebody, maybe your college alumni group. So all of that. So I think the bottom line is that many of us have gone through it. We have seen this, so should not be a surprise. But what did come to as a surprise to me is that if this is seen consistently over a feeling, it can cause anxiety and depression and guilt, and actually affect the performance, declining performance of the person. It also, in extreme cases, it can also create a fear in the person, and the person is unable to enjoy his or her life, and is always striving for perfection in this fear of going wrong and failing. And the third is that as you start living in this constant guilt of being worthless or not being good enough, obviously it will lead to burnout, and at some point you'll be overwhelmed with all the effort you put in and not seeing enough results. So there is a negative effect, which also was a big surprise, is that there is a negative effect if this is continuously seen over a period of time and not taken care of in the right manner. It can cause, mental health issues.
It can and it does. So I just want to share, because this topic is really close to me. I'm not just saying that I've felt this because, I want to, I don't know, commiserate with anybody who else has felt it. I literally thought I was 33, I want to say. Yeah. I thought I was having a heart attack. I had a panic attack so bad that I ended up going to the emergency room at 4 a.m. And it was because of this. This is exactly what you're talking about, how it escalated. Imposter syndrome. I also happened to be, my boss was not the nicest person on the planet, let's just say. So it wasn't all in my head, but anxiety and depression, and led to me just like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. So work harder. And eventually, of course, I looked like a ghost because I was burned out emotionally and physically and mentally. And it was, I remember so clearly because I literally couldn't breathe. I was at that time, I was, thank goodness, living with my parents for a while. And so there was somebody else who, took me to the hospital. And I remember waking up at 11 a.m. because when I got there, they sedated me. And I remember the first thing, the doctor comes in and he's like, so I think it's time to quit your job, hey? And I started laughing because all of a sudden everything clicked. And so it's terrifying and very real. I'll be quiet now.
Yeah. No, I have seen it too, Magda. I just didn't know there was a name to it. I've seen someone who has this drive for perfection and wants to be doing very well, got very low grades at some point in life in her college, and it completely shattered in spite of putting in a lot of work. And that was a one-time case. It's not a continuous effort. So I think, yeah, there are different causes. Magda's story was a good one. I think that's what most of us have seen go through. But it can even affect students or I think working professionals as well. So the causes is very interesting. I always thought that was largely to do with parenting, but it's interesting that there seem to be three main causes for this feeling of imposter syndrome. One is the parenting and the society or family environment. If there is a continuous pressure to do well, or if you're being compared to siblings, or if you're in an environment which is very protective, or you're with very sharp set of people you're living with, or in an environment, or there's a constant criticism. This is one set of causes. The second causes is that you are in a college, right? In college, you've done very well, and suddenly you switch to a place where you didn't do as well, and suddenly, right, you don't get as much praise, and that could be also causing some level of self-doubt. It may not be completely right. It may be valid to some extent, but I think that's where the person needs to differentiate, is how much of this is real versus how much of this is my fake, right, fake doubt that I'm bringing up. Second is, I think we just talked about it, is if you're in an environment or a school, or right, or in a company where you're working with very talented, gifted people, and you are slightly different, you may be always worried about, do you belong, do you fit in, I'm not as good as them. That's the second category. Third is the one also that I've seen, is it's more of a personality, right? If you are looking for perfection and things don't always meet your requirement, right, I think and you always look for high scores, anything that doesn't meet your expectation, because you're expecting things to work in a certain way, that can also cause right, uneasiness and self-doubt, and which in turn leads to imposter syndrome. Any thoughts on this one, Magda, since you brought up
so many.
Okay. All the others on the chat.
Honestly, we can do a whole webinar where we just go through these, because it's like, as you're talking, you're like, yep. But like, it doesn't always come from a place, I think, of negativity, right? So even, talking about the parenting or family societal environment, I was born in communist Poland. So I grew up in a society, I was a kid, so for me, everything was great, but like, the society I was in was very oppressed, and my parents had very little choice as to what they could do and how and when. So when I was little, my first 10 years of my life, basically, I was not just by my parents, but my entire family pushed to be the best, do the best, but not because of like, this is what they thought I needed to do. It was driven by the fact that communism was repressive. They didn't have choices. And here I was, this very stubborn, very outspoken, I've always been like this, kid. So I think my family just saw that, like I had the personality drive that if I was pushed, I would be able to achieve. So like, I know that it came from a place of, of goodness, but it did stack up to kind of, internally be like, well, I have to always be the best. Therefore, if I'm not the best, I'm not good enough. And it does pile on, even though the intentions were good.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, Magda. I also found the example I shared in our class was many of us in India, especially, we have these top ranking colleges where we always want our kids to go to the IITs, some of the big engineering colleges. And if you've grown up in an environment where everyone is in top engineering colleges becoming doctors or engineers, then there's always pressure on the children who are not able to keep up. And that intent puts a lot of pressure on them, which may lead to imposter syndrome at a later point in time when they're actually doing well for themselves, right? Because it comes from a background where, right, you always had this uneasy feeling about yourself. I think that's one example. The other example I can also share is that when in most of the workspace is largely, especially in the IT tech industry, is a lot of men, and you always feel you're the odd person out who's thinking differently, and you wonder if you either have to fit in. Are you being an imposter trying to be one of them? Right. So that's another example that I could think of. At some point, you realize that I think that probably happens much later when you realize that this is who you are and it's not phoniness. It's right. I think you fit in. Yeah, but this is an interesting slide. I think this is a whole psychoanalysis that we could go into, right, about what could be the root cause, but we don't need to do that. So I think this is probably what we would be interested in as coaches. So what can we do as coaches to mitigate this negative effects? So the first thing is, I think imposter syndrome to a smaller extent is actually good. It's not too bad, but it needs to be managed to an extent where it doesn't become detrimental. So how do we go about doing that? Right. First is that recognize that this looks like a case of imposter syndrome. Not everyone is. There could be cases where the person is really, pretending to be something else when they are not. But there could be many cases where all the signs show multiple cases of success, or multiple events which were positive, characteristics which are positive, but still the person has this feeling. That's a very clear that it's imposter syndrome. So I think being aware, like any other coaching right situation, is first bringing in that awareness that this is not real. It's just a feeling that you're carrying forward with you. I think that's the first step. Second is that don't get stuck. I've seen this in most places, is that let the thought come in and go through. Right, let the thought pass through. Don't freeze and get stuck at that one point. It's normal to feel it, but we don't need to get stuck at that point. Third is, I think, getting the client to talk about the feelings. I think that's something we do all the time. What does this feeling feel like, right? And I think bringing in the fact that you're not the only one. There are many others who feel it. I think the dialogue itself makes the person feel much lighter at the end of the session. I think fourth that we all always have to bring up is that it's okay to do a few mistakes. All of us go through it. That mistake doesn't override the 70-80% goodness that the person has achieved over a period of long-term period. So I think teaching a person to self-love or being kind to to yourself is also another aspect that a coach can bring in. Third is fifth point. I think we all do that, is focus on the future, forget the past, focus on the outcome, right, and focus and the end result that we want to go after. So don't focus on the obstacles or the as much of the feeling. Let the feeling pass and focus on the task that has to be done ahead of you, which will most likely yield result anyway, since that's been your historical performance. I think that's what the fifth point is about. Sixth is something that we also do all the time, is really about the mental model that's in a person's mind. So start telling yourself that even if you're found out, it's not a big deal. It's normal, and not everyone knows everything, and it's okay, right? And soon you'll figure out how to go about this. So it's really about rewriting the mental model of the person to think a little differently about the situation. Seventh is very similar point, is that it's okay to feel low at some point. It's okay to have doubts at some point. It's normal. But that doesn't mean that becomes your permanent state of mind. That's only now and in this particular situation or this particular problem. But this may not happen, right? This does not apply to other scenarios. And I think this is also very important, because you may not do one thing well, but there may be 8 things that you're very comfortable with. So don't just generalize and say, I'm bad at everything. So I think that's really what the 7th tip looks like. 8th is, and I think this comes with the growth mindset and all the nice stuff that we learn, is It's okay to fail. It's okay, right? Let's learn and move on and use them constructively for the future. I think none of these are new, but it's really interesting that just by bringing in the awareness and this context, right, and a little bit of self kindness and self-love, we can actually change, right? I think bring in a big change in a person's outlook and actually turn it into an asset instead of being a right liability for that person.
Sushma, I have a question.
Right.
So as you're talking through these different things on this particular slide, I'm feeling better about my imposter syndrome now than I did for, years, if not decades. But it took me forever. And all of these things, they're things that I tried in many different ways before I even understood that coaching was a thing. And then when I learned about coaching and self-coaching, these are things that I tried to kind of encourage myself to do. And still, even with that, and with a business partner like Ram, who's just the coolest person on the planet, and someone supportive like Cindy, who just sees the best and master in everyone, and my team, who's lovely, it's still like it's difficult. And I get this both from experience, and I get it mentally, logically. It's, am I just really difficult? My parents will tell you, yes, you are. Or is this just something that really, it's nice to say that coaches can help people with this, and I know they can, but it's such a big thing. I don't know what I'm asking. I'm asking maybe what is a normal, what is a reasonable kind of shift timeline, whatever, before you give up on a client?
Yeah, no, I think when we do, I've also been in the scenario, Magda. I think Cindy and Sarad in this call will be able to validate. When I joined the sessions, I actually started with very similar feelings. I was going into a very good role, into a very good company, but I still said I just got lucky. I'm worried I'll fail. But I think this was a habit I had built for many years, and I kept repeating on it. But after I read it, just like you said, that I realized that, my past data and success actually shows I've done well. So why am I really worried? It's right. And I think it's just keep telling yourself, but you're right, doing self-talk is very tiresome. And I think how much can you tell yourself? That's why I think coaches would really help, because you have one more person that you can talk to. And like you said, and with self-talk, you can keep like a pendulum switching between, oh, I am not good. And then, okay, next day you tell yourself. So it's a lot more time consuming and tiresome, versus I do think with a coach, right, it can be much faster. And I think there's some level of validation that you get, the sounding board that you get with a coach. At least that's my thought.
I had something, yesterday we were discussing something called flow, if you remember. And when one sets the context, and Sushma, just help me through this, when one sets the context of the whole discussion, then the rest of the conversation becomes so much easier. One of the great things about this concept of, what we're talking today, is that we're giving it a name. It's something that I personally have always sort of felt and dealt with for the first so many years of my life. And I didn't know that people had identified it, and there were other people around who are feeling exactly the same that I do. And it's actually, to me, first of all, it's very, very comforting to know that someone has looked at it, given it some thought, called it imposter syndrome. The word itself means that it's an imposter. It's not just me, but it's something else. And once, I think what really helps where I am, Sushma, is to really talk about it. The more I talk about it, the more deeply I talk about these feelings that I have, and occasionally these attacks that I might have, the better is the rest of the conversation. So, it actually helps where I am to talk about it as openly, as often, and as honestly as possible. And that is the starting point of dealing with imposter syndrome where I am.
Yeah, I also want to contribute to that and to talk to the point Magda's making, because she's right. Even the smartest of us sometimes don't know what to do with those self-talk or those pieces that are showing up inside us, telling us that we're not good enough, or we didn't do this well, or we just got lucky. So even the smartest of us wouldn't know what to do with that. But I want to say this imposter syndrome and all those symptoms around it is something we hold quite secretively inside us. We don't speak about this. I mean, I never even knew this had words to it. So we hold it inside us. Only when it shows up, then we begin to have some kind of reflections or new thinking around it. And one of the most effective ways to deal with it is to get real with yourself, like break that rhythm. Come out, if that's what you want to call it. Come out of it, break it, get out of that rhythm. And how to do that would be to acknowledge that you actually have that strength. You didn't get lucky. You are unique. Those are my strengths. I'm really good with that skill. I'm not lucky, yeah. I'm good with it. It's my own abilities, capabilities, uniqueness, and talents showing up. So you got to break that silence you're holding inside you and come out, find your way out of it. It's like iceberg model. Don't stay below the surface, come above.
Yeah, I think, Cindy, that's a great point, right? What you really said is we hide this. We don't know, right? This is what it is, and we are secretive about it. And actually, that is what causes the problem. The moment we give it a name and we know that this is what it is, right? It becomes much easier to handle it and manage it. Another interesting point, if you remember, we discussed is that there could actually be a capability gap, right? So you generally have this feeling, and you have right. And there could be 10 different things that you're doing right. Maybe there are one or two things that you're not good at. It's this reflection will actually help you identify that there are all these things that I actually do well. There's two things I don't do well, and I'm going to work on it. So there could be a gap which is actually leading to this overarching imposter feeling. And this, I think, being aware and digging into it, it actually helps you identify those capability gaps. Right. So, yeah, I think there are many cases. So usually I also believe the imposter syndrome is triggered or right, initiated because of one underlying feeling of not inadequacy in a certain area, but it tends to blow out of proportion and affect your overall, right, a broader feeling. But if we use this opportunity to dig into it and identify that it's actually a I think there's a constructive of right gap. Like, for example, for a long time I didn't do that well in interviews, and it was because of right, not knowing certain technologies well enough. But I generally assume that right, I'm pretending to be this big person in interviews. So instead, it helped me identify that no, I'm actually good in all these 10 things, but I have this weakness in a certain technology area. So let me do courses in that area and improve so that it doesn't affect my overall performance. Right. So that's an example I can think of. I think the good thing is it looks like that just by being aware and just some reframing, it can easily be managed, right? It doesn't look like it's very complex. Since it's so prevalent, especially in executive roles and mid-management executive roles, and it can easily be managed. It is something that I think we can easily address by just bringing in the awareness, letting their client talk about the feelings, right, and bringing in that context, reframing, and focusing on the outcome. So it flows it fits in very naturally with the whole coaching framework, right, Cindy? That's what I felt. And another, yeah, go ahead.
Just where you are and what you're talking about. And this is a question to you and everyone else who's listening in. All of us have felt this panic attack or feeling of inadequacy or not sort of being good enough at different points in time. You know, some of us have felt it in school, some in college, some when we started to work. And but you know, I'd like to understand from you and everyone else here, at what point in time did they first realize that, you know, they felt this whole thing about not being good enough, feeling anxious, not sort of belonging in that place? And you know, that memory for a lot of us is quite vivid, because that attack or that feeling, it's the first time we sort of realize that, you know, the imposter syndrome is something that we had or with us. What's been your experience? When was the first time when you sort of realized this?
Yeah, I see someone saying school, childhood.
I'll jump in, because why the heck not? It doesn't have to be work, I think. So for me, it was, I'm sure there was little ones, but like a big one was actually during my MBA, when I was seeing someone and he told me that not only was he seeing somebody else, but he was going to propose to her. And I was like, what is happening? And my first feeling was that, well, you're not supposed to be cheating. Like, I should have been thinking about, you're not supposed to be cheating on people. Second of all, like, who else knew about this? We had common friends. So like, what the heck is happening? But all I could think about was, clearly you're not good enough. Not that this guy's an a-hole for doing what he's doing, but no, you're not good enough. And just downhill from there.
Yeah, that's a nice personal story, Magda. In fact, there was one more that I shared, that it can happen in personal life as well as professional life. In fact, one of the TED Talks, he talks about him having a very beautiful, gorgeous wife, and every day he would wake up and wonder, how did I manage to get this wife, right? Am I good enough? But after he became aware of the imposter syndrome, he started telling himself that she probably thinks the same too. So you can see the difference. It's a very small change, but he started, you know, I think personal life, I'm sure, was much better when he started feeling much better about it.
So Magda, I have a question for you, and I don't mean to ask it like coaching style. I just don't know how else. How is bad behavior sit with you as imposter syndrome?
Well, back then, this was, you know, a while back now. Back then,
Yeah.
I didn't think of his behavior.
Ah, okay.
Back then, all I could think of was what's not good enough about me, that somebody, it wasn't even about him. It was like, what's wrong with me that this happened to me? How am I not good enough that someone would treat me this way? How can they not think that I have enough worth to not be treated this way? It took me years to figure out that that's not the right way to look at it.
Yeah. So it's just sat completely with you, even though it was about the other person. Yeah, I can see how that would have just consistently, you know, gone like hammer, knock, 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 knock. Yeah.
Oh, it was debilitating. Honestly, it literally, like the reason I jumped in was because it's one, my palms are sweaty. This is one of these things, see, I'm stuttering. This is one of these things in my life that it took me a very, very long time to be able to look back on without that you're not good enoughness sitting on my chest. And that's how I'm perceiving it. Like it literally took almost 2 decades.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That what that would do to a person. So on a lighter note, I can go now and smack him for you.
Oh, it's okay. I've done it since then.
Okay. Would you?
Today we're sharing things that are from the past. I'm okay now.
Yes.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, I think Cindy, right, it looks like if we are coming from this place, I'm not good enough, I'm fake, I don't deserve, we are having the completely wrong conversation with ourselves, right? Looks like that is the, these are the main lines, right, that's causing the problem. Right, if we hear any of these, those are instant indicators that this could be right, possibly a case of imposter syndrome. Okay, I think I'm pretty much done with the slide. Last slide, this is the last slide. It basically says it's not a bad thing. It's actually I think some amount of self-doubt and a little bit of imposter syndrome is actually good because it actually forces you to get better and improve. But it needs to be recognized and draw the line that this part is real, this is not real, and this is the area I'm working on. But to a large extent, I've done it in the past. I'm not pretending or I am good enough for this, but right, I can do better here. I think maybe remove even those words from your vocabulary because it can have a complete negative impact on many things for many years. Like Magda's story, she talked about 20 years, right? So I think the sooner we remove that vocabulary, it's actually good for us. This again picture is a very nice depiction. It says, I don't deserve to be here. Instead, it should say, I believe the person who hired me or invited me and I need to be here or I've earned it. I think those are this kind of changes the mental model that we should be going out with. Sarad, what do you think? Does this resonate with what we talked about?
You know, there are a few core competencies that would really help clients or help us as coaches work with clients that are suffering imposter syndrome. If you look at your PCC markers, I have a feeling you all will have it somewhere. What do you think those competencies are? That, you know, gives us a sense of what is real, what is not, what's an assumption or a perception. Yeah. Go on, you type into the chat box while Sarah talks. Sarah?
I mean, you sort of summed it up quite well. The honest feeling that I have here is that I really need to engage whenever this kind of a feeling comes to me. I need to have a long, deep, honest discussion about it to someone I can trust, or perhaps to anyone. And you know, the way I look at it, if I can reach deep down in the crevices of where this imposter syndrome sort of lies, and I can touch it and I hold it, then I feel a lot more comfort. Because it's you know, those of us and a lot of us have gone through this, it's a feeling that it's a feeling. It's not just something that we feel mentally, but almost physically. The feeling of sweaty palms, anxiousness, the trembling of the voice, and all of that, we feel besides ourselves. We are almost a different person, not in control of our senses at times. When this really strikes, leads to an anxiety attack or a panic attack. And with that being the case, where I am, it really helps to reach deep down and have a very, very honest and authentic discussion and conversation about this thing.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about the PCC markers. So I assume it's evokes awareness, supporting the client, right? And right with their, and I think listening to the feelings, asking the client about the feelings before and after. So I see those are some of the PCC markers that we would be touching upon.
Yeah, 6.1. I see many of the coaches on the chat highlighted 6.1, 7.2, 8.2, markers around evoking awareness, everything around the woo of the client, exploring feelings of the coaches. What about the marker on uniqueness, talents? When we're working with clients, sometimes it's good to ask that question. And what new are you discovering about yourself around your strengths, capabilities, uniqueness, talents? It's good to do some coaching around Johari's window, things that are known to you. You may have forgotten about yourself and now becoming known.
Okay.
And, the iceberg model, what's lying below the surface and how we're going to work on it to resolve it. I'm just reading out from the chat what people are saying, Sushma.
Yeah. I think, yeah, interesting. Johari's window, this whole imposter syndrome is what you think about yourself, and what you assume the world thinks about yourself is much broader. So probably Johari's window would help applying it here.
Anyone has any specific questions you want to raise? Go ahead, put it into the chat box, or there's a Q&A box that you can use.
I want to hear from our last panelist because Bansri, is that how you say your name? I'm sorry. We haven't heard from you yet.
No, so I've just been listening, and I heard Sushma share her ideas a couple of weeks ago, and it was very insightful because the beauty is in acknowledging and admitting to yourself that this is what you're going through. And once you're able to truly admit to yourself that this is it, and it's not something wrong with you, it is something that it's a situation you're in, then suddenly being able to change your mental model around it starts becoming easy. So, a simple thing like to try and understand that why is it so important to me to be the best or to be so perfect? And if you pivot your head around it and say, it's not because there's something wrong with me or I'm not good enough, but you pivot and you say that, oh, that's because I'm so passionate about getting it right. And I have so much respect about the people that I work with. Could be a way. Which way to pivot out the situation depends on the context of the person and where the insecurity is coming from. But like everyone said, the fundamental is about the acknowledgement. And if you can acknowledge and admit to yourself that yes, it's a syndrome, it's a situation, it is not me. The solutions then therefore start becoming that much more easier. I can relate a personal example. When I was working in a startup very early in my career where perfection was really important because as a startup, you're already, don't have the kind of infrastructure as the big companies, but you have to do better than them. And that's the situation with a lot of people here in India who are working in startups. They're working 24/7. By the end of it, you're exhausted because, you need to be perfect and you need to be faster than everyone else in the market. And then suddenly you start realizing when you change companies and, you are in a different scenario that, oh, but I don't know how to do it in a large company. Oh, but I don't deserve to be here, And then something clicked for me when I realized in that situation, in that conference room, that if I don't admit my strengths to myself, these guys are going to eat me up. And it's about time I did it. And that's when that click happened, that mental model shift changed. And I could embrace, my achievements for what they were. So I guess it depends on each person and how that click will happen. But like everyone said, the beginning is where acknowledgement of it, that it's a syndrome and it's not me, is all the difference.
So sorry if I'm asking another question, but just knowing how long this took for me to even acknowledge, like, I gave myself every excuse in the book for why I am this way, or, you know, I got very good at justifying my behaviors and my thoughts and my interpretations. I mean, even when, you know, we talked about naming the imposter syndrome, even once that happened, I was still doing it. I love that Johari window got brought up, because that's like one of the only concepts that I remember from uni, from this communications class I took, and I thought it was the coolest thing. Terrible class, great concept. So when I was 19 years old, I learned about Johari window. Yet here I am at, you know, 41, and it's been a journey. And I'm just wondering, you know, when you're working with a client, all you lovely coaches who have worked with clients on this, you know, how do you help the client kind of get past the thing they think it is versus what actually is? Because I lied to myself for years, and I didn't know that I was lying to myself until, I don't know until when, but it took a while. I don't know if it's even a question that I'm asking. Cindy, you can usually decipher the things I'm saying.
Yeah. You know, because it's so silent and it's so small and it happens repeatedly, small pieces at a time, that compacts. Yeah. So you don't know it until somebody may ask something, or you may have a trigger point, as Bansri was saying, when you realize, this is going to get chipped off. And because it got so compacted, it will get chipped off small pieces at a time. It's not going to get chipped off just the whole thing, unless you one day say, to hell with it all, I'm just coming out, I'm not owning this, it was a silly belief, over and done with. But normal human beings won't do that, right? It's a slow process. Yeah. I think there's a good thing in what you are saying, meaning just the acknowledgement of it, you know, naming it, bringing it forward and saying, I worked on it. There's lots of self-reflection value in that. So coaches, if you've got clients or you yourself managing this, take some quiet time for yourself. I mean, in so many different ways, I had to do this for myself quite often, where, you know, just take some quiet time out. Figure out the thing that's worrying you. If it's an anxiety or an anxiousness or whatever it is sitting inside you, figure it out for yourself. Especially if you have words like, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, that kind of words inside you. What's wrong with me? Figure that out and play that game all the way through. If you ask you what's wrong with you, then ask what's wrong with you. And if you can't put anything on your list of what's wrong with you, then you need to change it to what's right with you, because it can't be something wrong with you if you can't name it. Yeah? Look at your own self-talk and ask yourself how much of this is real and how much is not. Because the same value then we can work with our clients, right? In similar ways. And open that question on 3.4. What is getting in the client's way? What is the client hoping to address? Or if they're talking about beliefs and values, then go there and help them figure it out. Okay, to the panelists, anything else you want to say to round up today's conversation?
Yeah, I just read a note. I think it is a self-limiting belief, something I missed saying. So this is a self-limiting belief. And somebody mentioned, Dusty, I think said, is ask the client is not going to say, I have imposter syndrome, right? He's going to use words like I'm fake or I don't feel great. So ask the question that we always ask, where is this coming from? To really understand if it could be a case of imposter syndrome. I think that's what I would like to say.
One of them is asking the client about his beliefs. And And I wonder if it's also a good idea to ask the client, what would he or she sort of lose if he were to go beyond imposter syndrome? And if he were to lose the imposter syndrome altogether, what would life be like for him? And it is, I think someone typed it in the chat, is the imposter syndrome getting in the way of getting rid of the imposter syndrome? And it was quite interesting. What would it be if his life was without imposter syndrome? And what would it take for him to get there?
Brilliant, quite reflective. It's a lovely question. That's your 7.3 question, right? 7.2 and 3. Pansri, anything you want to say? And then Magda, you can close off.
I think most everything has been said. It's about reflecting for each one of us, really where it's coming from.
Yeah. From me, Sushma, that's a wonderful presentation. Thank you for opening this topic and creating the awareness for us. Even if we chip it off small pieces at a time, we have started our journey, and together we'll support each other in doing it. Magda, I'll hand over to you to close.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for allowing me to jump in and not, muting me away. Because ironically enough, when I did jump in to offer my examples, I mean, for me, it's part of kind of taking charge of the remnants of my imposter syndromes from whatever situations. But, even as I was saying things, guess what I was thinking? Oh, this is not valuable. Like, how is my experience and my example really going to make the discussion any better? This is supposed to be by coaches for coaches to learn things. Like, Magda, you're pretending to be a client, shut the F up. But that's what imposter syndrome is, I think, right? Like, and I got over it and I said it, and I forced myself to say it because I thought, you know what, maybe somebody will get value, and I will get value because it's going to help me chip away at it. So thanks for the pseudo coaching therapy session for me, because it was helpful. But yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. As always, these webinars are here for the whole community. And what I think is really cool is that they live on our YouTube channel and on our podcast, so that people who aren't here live can experience them. And please share them, because there's little over 100 of us who are in this particular session, and based on the chat, I know I wasn't the only one who got good value out of it. So please share this content, and let's continue to help each other, and let's continue to help coaches help their clients too, because it's kind of like a tree, right? Like, we're kind of at the trunk, and we're building here's what you can do. And then all of you are the big branches who get to go off and do some good things in the world. And then every person you touch is the smaller branches and leaves. And I just think that's pretty cool that we get to do that together every single week. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that I'm feeling grateful today. And thanks for being here. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for the presentation. This will all be on our blog and our podcast and our YouTube channel. And I thank you for everything, your patience. And I'll see you here next week. Yeah? Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Magda. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week or next month too. Bye.
Bye.